Hey folks, and welcome to Truck King. Today we are looking at two reasonably priced crossovers. It's nice for a change not to have the top trim, crazy expensive models. So on my left, that's the 2023 Volkswagen Tiguan, and on my right, that's the all-new redesigned Honda CR-V. And we're gonna crawl all over these things, look at the features, look at the interior space, and then go on a long drive and find out which one is better. Let's take a look at the two vehicles we have here today. So this is the CR-V EXL. That is one step down from the top trim. Now with this model, I mentioned it was fully redesigned for 2023. Well, underneath the skin, there wasn't really any changes. Same powertrains, 1.5 liter turbo on this one, all-wheel drive, but the way it looks on the outside and on the inside is entirely new this year. So once again, we'll show you all around it and you can tell us if you like the changes that Honda made. And over here we have the Volkswagen Tiguan Comfort Line R-Line Black, which once again is one step below the top trim. So as trim levels go, these two are actually basically dead on. Now, when you go for the R-Line, you get some styling accents, and then of course when you get the black package, well, they're blacked out. So black badges here, black mirror caps, that black trim around the wheel well, stuff like that. Of course, also 19-inch blacked out wheels. Now, outside of that stuff, the Tiguan hasn't changed for 2023. It's still using a 2-liter turbocharged engine under the hood. And now I want to get to the pricing because I think that's very important with vehicles like this. So this Tiguan, as it sits, as you see it, is just over $41,000 Canadian, whereas the CR-V back there is about $45,000. Now let's take a look at the interior space. All right, so let's start off with the second row here on the Tiguan. And I will tell you there are 2 lower latch positions and 3 top tethers on the back for your child seat. So this is 38.6 inches of leg room, and I got loads of leg room. This is my driving position as well. My knees are close to the floor. My only issue is this huge panoramic sunroof. I would say I have just enough headroom, but I am realistically touching on the roof. So if I was to sit here, I would have to slouch down a little bit. If you get the monster sunroof, just be aware you'll lose a bit of that rear headroom. Plus, again, a bit of a sloping rear roof line here. Now, when it comes to amenities, I have a 12-volt plug, and I have a USB-C down here, and I have some vents back here for the passengers, and that's about it. Now, let's go see if the Honda's any better. And now the CR-V, now the first thing I'm going to tell you, there's 2 lower latch positions, same as the Volkswagen, but there is no top tether position in the center. So there's no way to actually put your child seat in this middle position because you don't have that top tether. I thought that was interesting. Now let me climb in. So this is 40 inches of rear seat legroom, a little bit more. Also my driving position. Doesn't really feel like more, to be honest, but this seat is quite a ways back, but I do have enough. I definitely have enough, same as the Volkswagen. And then here, because of this hump, if I was to move forward, I hit the roof, but back here, I'm actually fine, and that's perfect. They've made this recess. This is to accept the much smaller sunroof. So here in the CR-V, definitely have more headroom, but overall, they feel pretty similar here in the back seat. I wouldn't really pick one over the other, maybe the Honda because I got that much more headroom, but there's less amenities here. I actually have no USB ports, no 12-volt down there. I do get the vents, and then the one thing the Honda has is a heated second row. So that's kind of cool. I get a heated seat, but I can't plug my stuff in here in the Honda. So second rows are really close. Let's look at the storage now. Now we're at the back of the Tiguan, and the first thing I want to tell you guys is this is a non-powered hatch, and it says right on the build sheet that for 2023, powered hatches at Volkswagen are production constrained, so they just couldn't make it. I don't know if that's a chip shortage thing, but it's just something to be aware of. If you buy a 23, you're probably not getting a powered hatch, even though you should. So this is just over 35 cubic feet of storage space. It is quite a bit back here. One thing I'll show you, if you lift the floor up, you do get a spare tire down there, temporary use spare tire, which is nice. You also get these little storage bins down here, sort of on either side of it. And then there's some D-rings all the way up here in the corners and some D-rings in these back corners to tie stuff down. Plus manual handles where you can tumble that second row from the back of the vehicle, and a 12-volt plug there. So a pretty useful space here in the Volkswagen. Now let's go look at the CR-V and see if there's any real differences. Now let's look at the Honda, and like I mentioned, if you need a powered hatch, well then come to Honda, because they can still build them. So this is about 5 cubic feet more storage, and I mentioned in the second row they didn't feel that different. In the back, they do feel different, and the Honda feels bigger. The roof line is higher, the floor feels lower, there's more space for me to get into this chair. This is just straight up more storage space. You're also getting smaller, but little bins on either side as well. Underneath this cutout, you can lift it up, then lift the floor. You're also getting a temporary use spare tire, so exactly the same as the Volkswagen. 4 D-rings in the corners for tie downs, little grocery hooks, and a 12-volt. So at the back end, I do have to say the CR-V is a little bit more useful and a little bit more practical. Before we take off, let's just look at the cameras here of the CR-V. So that's your standard rear view. You have a wide rear view, and then a narrow view looking straight down. So if you did have a hitch on right here, you'd be able to hook up your trailer a little easier. And then here you have your cross traffic alert that you can turn on and off. And then I like this, you can also bring up your parking sensors there so you can see them. It'll tell you exactly how close I am to the snowbank. And boom, there you go. Now they're not the clearest cameras I've ever seen, but not horrible. Let's see how they compare to the Volkswagen. Now we're here in the Tiguan, and we can take a look at the cameras here. Now one thing that's cool, you'll notice there's no buttons on the screen until my hand comes up to the screen, and then you can see the button appeared there. And this is showing me what's behind myself. Now I want the park distance control setting. So now, this is what I was looking for. So you can see that red box. As I turn the wheel, it's showing me exactly where the car is gonna end up, and it actually goes green when it knows that you're going to fit in that space, which is pretty cool. And then you can see the little steering wheel there. It actually tells you which way to steer to get there. Now it thinks I could park over here on the snowbank, which I could not, but that's because it can't quite see the snowbank. But that's pretty neat, Matt, that it kind of shows you exactly where you're going to end up and how that works. And then again, when I bring my finger up to the screen, the buttons appear again. That's my top-down trailering view, so if I did have a hitch on, and then there's sort of a super wide view out of your rear as well. So pretty cool. And then you have a few different buttons here for your backup sensors too. But we can go over here, and we can back her right back into the Honda. And quality-wise, I'd say this is just as good as the Honda, so I wouldn't pick one over the other. And our trip begins. We actually need to return this Honda, so we're heading back to Honda Canada. First, we're gonna fuel up both of these guys, and then we'll end at a gas station too, so we'll see which one uses more fuel on the trip. Let's go. Okay, Matt, as we roll down the road here, the first thing I want to start with is just a features comparison. And I mentioned the trim levels here are perfectly aligned, just one underneath the top trim. But that's actually kind of nice because these are fairly affordable vehicles, but you know what? They have a lot of content. You're really not feeling like you're missing much. So let's just start going down the list. First of all, adaptive cruise control. I have that here in the Volkswagen. Do you have that?
I also have adaptive cruise up here. I've got 4 spacing settings as far as how far I want to be from somebody, and I also have my lane keep assist.
Nice. So in typical Volkswagen fashion, I have 5 settings in terms of following distance. Everything about Volkswagen, they always like to offer you different or more tiers, I guess you could say. One example, Matt, is a heated steering wheel. I have a heated steering wheel, but I have 3 different heat settings on my steering wheel. Do you have a heated wheel?
I have a heated wheel, but I have off, and I have on. That's it.
Yeah, it's a funny thing in Volkswagen products. They like to, like I said, give you kind of all of those choices. So what else? So here in my Tiguan, Matt, I have a massive panoramic sunroof. What do you have up top?
I also have a sunroof. It is just what I would call a standard sunroof, but I do have one.
Yeah, so just the small one over there. So if you want a panoramic sunroof, well, the Volkswagen's a bit better there. Let's see, what about wireless phone charging? And I'll also say I have 2 USB-C ports up in front of me, and that's about it. So 2 USB-C, a 12 volt, and wireless phone charging.
All right, I have wireless phone charging down here just in front of the gear shifter. I also have a regular USB-C, or pardon me, I have a regular USB, a USB-C, and then I also have a 12 volt. So I have 3 options for charging.
Yeah, it's interesting. Volkswagen's gone to just USB-C, and I know everything's going that way, but I haven't seen too many brands not offer at least one USB-A, and yeah, it's not here at all. I'm all USB-C. So what about drive modes? I'll run through my modes real quick. I do have a snow mode, I have a normal mode, and then I have an off-road mode, an off-road custom mode, an eco setting, and a sport setting. So I have quite a few drive modes here. Plus I can shift my own gears using my shifter down here. How about you?
Well, I don't have nearly as many options. I have a selector down here by my gear shifter, and if I toggle it up, I get normal, 1 down for econ, and 1 down for snow, and that's it. At the end of the day, it's all you need for Canada.
Yeah, I mean, having the off-road mode is kind of funny in this Tiguan. This thing doesn't even hint at being an off-road vehicle. So I guess the idea there is if you do find yourself in some mud or maybe some really slick, wet grass or something, you do have a mode that's going to help to, get all the power down. But I imagine snow mode is probably pretty similar. So.
Now, one thing I noticed when I drove the Tiguan there earlier, you have a lot of sliders and more contact-based buttons, whereas I have physical buttons both in my console and on my steering wheel. So I've got buttons for HVAC, I've got buttons for volume control, different options in my wheel, as well as on my radio. I have physical buttons for home, back, tracks, volumes, and then a couple of actual touchscreen buttons. So do you have anything similar?
No, I mean, I have a volume knob and a seat knob, and that's kind of it for physical controls. Everything else is a capacitive button. Like you said, it's just kind of contact-based. And I do think this is a personal preference thing. If you were to own this Volkswagen, you'd likely get used to it. But you know what, Matt? After driving them both, the CR-V is just straight up easier to use. Everything's just, yeah, I like the physical buttons. They all make more sense. Here in the Volkswagen, on my steering wheel, for instance, for my volume, I can press them like they're buttons, or I can slide my thumb over that bar like a slider. So they give you choices, but then sometimes it gets confused because you don't press in exactly the right spot and then it wants to slide, and yeah, I don't know, it's kind of annoying. Plus they're all finished in piano black, and that just means that they show all the dust. So my steering wheel constantly looks dusty and it has fingerprints on it. So no, of the 2 interior setups, I think all the buttons in the Honda is just a smarter and easier to use setup. And then finally, Matt, one other thing I'll ask you about. So I have a fully digital gauge cluster. It's all configurable. I can change it all up. What do your gauges look like?
It's funny, when I first got in, I thought, oh, cool, digital gauge cluster. And then I looked again and I thought, no. So my speedometer is analog. So that's the right side of the screen. It's an analog speedometer. But then from the center all the way to the left, it's digital. I have a digital tack, which I can change to different things depending on what I'd like it to be. And then a screen inside the tack that I can move, as well as my center screen that I can set with different information as well, which is nice to have. I guess at the end of the day, I'm kind of like, I guess I don't need a fully digital. It was just kind of threw me off that it was 2/3 digital.
Yeah, for sure, but I think it does look nice over there as well. So yeah, I think what hopefully the folks at home are getting the idea of here is that these are really similarly contented, and I don't find myself missing anything, Matt. There's nothing in here that I'm like, oh darn, I really wish I had that. So if you do step up to those full luxury levels, it's mostly about the way they look and some of the nice interior appointments. But if you're really looking for bang for your buck, these are the trim levels, sort of the mid trims that you're gonna want to look at. Okay folks, now we've switched. I'm here in the Honda, Matt's behind me in the Volkswagen, and we're both right now gonna put our foot to the floor just to feel the power, just for a second, and then we'll comment on it. Okay, ready, Matt? 3, 2, 1, foot to the floor. And good. Well, Matt, up here in the CR-V, you know what? I actually have a little bit more horsepower than you. It doesn't feel like that though, thanks to the CVT. It's just kind of a mushy feeling when you put your foot into it. You feel the CVT rev up and then you slowly feel the speed start to follow. The power is adequate. I won't call it underpowered for this segment. It's more than enough. But yeah, there's no doubt the CVT shows itself, and you just have to get used to that feeling, kind of the disconnect between what your right foot is doing, what the RPMs are doing, and what the speedometer is doing. What did you feel in the Volkswagen?
You can definitely feel with a geared transmission, this thing is powerful. It takes off really quick, off the line especially, compared to the CVT over there. This thing just grunts and goes. I know you've got me beating horsepower, but I do have an advantage in torque over here, and I think between the transmission and that little bit more torque, you really feel like you've got more get up and go over here in the Tiguan.
Yeah, I would agree, and actually the words I kind of come back to, Matt, are in almost all ways the Tiguan feels pretty sharp, where the CR-V feels kind of soft. So you have that 8-speed automatic, it gives you those nice crisp shifts. And then the other thing we talked about is that the steering in the Tiguan, it's a very quick steering ratio. If you're someone who likes kind of a quick handling car, you're gonna like that Tiguan. Whereas here in the CR-V, I got a slow steering ratio, a big dead zone in the middle of my steering, kind of slow to respond. But I call this easy to drive here in the Honda. The Volkswagen, like I said, it feels like whoever tuned that thing, they really cared about the driving experience. Whereas the Honda's like, yeah, no one driving this thing really cares about how it drives, so let's just make it simple. The Honda feels soft, the Volkswagen feels sharp. What do you think?
I think I'd agree on that. The CR-V seemed to translate a lot more of the road into the cabin versus over here where I'm not getting that. The one thing you did have was acoustic glass up there on the CR-V, and I did notice as far as outside road noise, I felt it was pretty good. Did it do much to drown out the CVT drone? No. But it did kind of give me that nice insulation from wind and other types of noises that you get on longer drives. And as far as the steering goes, you're absolutely right. For myself, I am a fan of the loose steering. I really am. I'm back here in the Tiguan right now, and I'm afraid to sneeze because I'm going to end up in the next lane. And that's not the end of the world. I'm sure there's guys out there that are laughing at me, and that's fine. But for me, having to drive it all the time is like, oh, every little correction is a whole new angle or a new vector I'm now taking.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, and I do think that comes back to personal preference. Like I said, if you're someone who really kind of cares about the driving experience and you want the vehicle to return a little bit of something to you that's a little bit pleasurable, I think the Volkswagen's going to be better. However, again, in this segment, Matt, I really believe most of these owners and drivers don't truly care about the vehicle being fun. So in that way, the Honda's got it dialed in, just nice, simple, and easy. All right, Matt, and we're just pulling back into the gas station now. So let's go ahead and read off our computers. So I'm here in the Honda. It says we've traveled 73.9 kilometers and I averaged 7.7 liters per 100 kilometers. And I will mention that that's majority highway miles, probably about 20 kilometers city mixed in, but the rest were highway. But yeah, 7.7 liters per 100. What's your number?
All right, I'm showing 73, but I don't show a decimal, sadly. 73 kilometers, and I average 8.1 liters per 100.
Interesting, so pretty close, but the Honda's a hair better. Now let's fill them up, and we'll do the math ourselves and see if that still checks out. Okay, folks, now we've pulled into Honda here, so we'll do the math ourselves on our fuel economy. I'll show you my receipt. You can see it there. In the Honda, I use 6.182 liters of fuel. You go ahead and take that and multiply it by 73.9 kilometers, multiply by 100, sorry, divide first one, and you get 8.36 liters per 100 kilometers, which is worse than what the computer said. The computer said 7.7, and the real world says we did 8.3 in the Honda. What the Volkswagen do?
All right, so I filled up the Volkswagen, and we filled it up right there at 6.27 liters. So we do our 6.27 divided by our distance, and multiply that by our 100, and we get 8.48.
So just a hair worse, but also actually much closer to your computer reading. So the Volkswagen was a true reading.
If you go just by what we used at the pumps, I only used about 100 milliliters more fuel. 0.1 of a liter more.
Interesting.
To get to the same place.
So it sounds like the Honda still has maybe a hair of an edge when it comes to fuel economy, but out here in the real world, yeah, there won't be a huge difference. Well, folks, we have come to the end of this one. Now, I do think the differences are clear. If you're someone who truly cares about style and a rewarding driving experience, the Tiguan is the clear choice. But in typical Honda fashion, for all the practical things like slightly better fuel economy and more space for your people in cargo, the CR-V takes it. And yes, if I was laying down my money, I would lean towards the Honda. In this segment, I don't think it matters that much how they drive, and getting that extra space is truly what's important. So yeah, that's what I would go with. But now I need to hear from you. Go in the comments, let me know which one of these two crossovers you would buy. As always, while you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member of Truck King, and then come back here to the channel to see what we're testing next. See ya.